All right, we are on episode 14, you guys, of how to drill like a pro. This is where I think Scott and I really add some value because there's no pedagogy on pickleball instruction. It's changing, it's evolving literally every week on the pro tour. We see new shots, new technology, new game styles. Heck, we see Colin Johns getting dumped by his brother Ben Johns this week, right? Like the game is evolving, people are evolving. And if you want to evolve your game, you need to drill like the pros. And if you listen to our last podcast on all things defense, you know that a lot of what Scott and I talk about is really homegrown. You know, a lot of our lesson plans are completely homegrown from personal experience or working with other pros. Speaking of which, before we hop into it, February 15th and 16th of 2025, come see me and Scott in Pasadena, California. We're doing a 2-day pickleball breakdown camp. We're going to have 2 hours of instruction in the morning, then a Q&A, catered lunch with some video analysis, maybe even a pro exhibition. It is going to be awesome. To learn more, go to jillybeepickleball.com/camps. Scott, are you excited for our first ever pickleball breakdown camp?
Oh, I'm very excited, and it's such a great venue. It's where I practice normally in Arcadia, so everyone who comes to that property will love it.
Yep.
It'll be a great camp. You and I working together will be super fun for all of the campers.
It's going to be awesome. And for those of you who want a little more spice in your life, come to Mexico. See me and Scott October 25th through the 29th, 1 hour north of Cabo. All right, Scott, I have 3 of my favorite homegrown drills. Do you want to kick us off with one of yours?
One of my favorite drills, I like 2-on-1 drills.
Me too.
It's like whenever someone wants to come work with me, and I'm like, okay, well, it would be great if we can get a third person, because the dynamic of when you have 4 people, it's too tempting to just play. When you have 2 people, a lot of the stuff, well, it has to be down the line.
Not realistic.
But there's so many skills where it's like, well, what I want is a cross-court dink battle, and then I want that third person getting sped up at and dealing with it, right? So it's like the person on their own dinking cross-court gets to practice speeding up, and then the third person gets to practice, defending. And then also, it's like in the same way, it's like with that same setup with 2 people on the left and 1 on the right. The person who's alone, I also like running that person around to kind of practice being alpha and handle this dink and handle this dink. And it's like they get to play the whole court, but they have 2 people to dink to so that they can work on all of their spots. And you don't need 4 people to do that when you're just working over that left side player. So that 2-on-1 format is my favorite way to drill.
I cannot agree more with that, Scott. When people go, ugh, we only have 3 for tomorrow, I'm like, dude, what a gift. There is nothing better than 3-way drilling. When you're drilling just 1-on-1, which has a ton of positives too, it can get unrealistic. Like if you go to counter a ball, you're supposed to maybe counter it down the line when the natural spot would have been a little bit more middle, and then you lose the point. And what type of negative feedback is that kind of sending your brain and your body for losing a point you should have won? So I agree with you. I am obsessed with 3-way drilling. Can you be a little bit more specific? Like what are your favorite 3-person drills? I find that when I do a lot of 3-person drilling, I'm basically like 75% of the time at the kitchen line, like not doing a lot from the backcourt.
Well, I mean, the 2 I just described are definitely all 3 players are at the kitchen. I feel like if it pretty much works. It works both ways. Whether it's 2 people on the left and 1 person on the right, and in that scenario, it's like, yeah, we're just working that person who's the 1 person by themselves. But also, like we can, prior to you joining our Bay Area Breakers team, when it was Rachel and Viv, and I was working with the 2 of them, several times a week for a long time, and it's like Viv and I would be on the same side at the kitchen, and we would just work over Rachel, dinking on the right side. and just having that that ability where it's like you're just getting, when you're the right side player who often gets targeted, having two people just on you, you're getting every single ball. It's a really good way of kind of adding pressure and some reality to the drill. And then just getting lots of balls and just like kind of feeling that, you can sort of create a little bit of game time pressure by doing that with the 2-on-1s.
I really like when I'm doing 2-on-1 to have the two players in front of me at the kitchen. I'm in the back on the baseline on the left side. They feed me a ball that's not easy, not super hard, and I'll drive in front of me and then drop inside out. And I will do that 100 times. Drive, drop. Points over as soon as I arrive, because the purpose of the drill isn't to play the point out the kitchen. It's for me to get to practice a drive drop combination. And you can do that from the right side too. Say you want them to feed the ball in the middle, you drive a backhand line, and then the very next one, roll a forehand cross court. And so what you're doing is getting your opponents really wrong footed, and you're practicing a pattern where, for me, so much of pickleball is like when I get on the court, if you think you stink, you kind of want to be able to turn off your brain and say, I've done this a million times. This middle ball, right? This third I'm about to hit, I just did this a million times 2 days ago in that drill. I'm going to drive line, drop inside out. Do you like that drill?
I love that. Yes, I love that idea of I'm going to drive here, but almost but the intention is so that I can hit my fifth shot drop over to a corner. And, especially if it's to a corner of someone who doesn't Ernie, then it's like, that's such a great spot.
The other thing I like doing in that drill is mix up the feeds, right? Like make it so your feed sometimes is really short and you're running up and you're maybe going to rip it. Make it so you get a high, easy one. Make it so you just got blown into the fence. Like no two feeds coming from your partners should ever be the same.
Yeah, that's like, it reminds me of when someone says they want to work on their thirds. So one person goes to the kitchen and just feeds them balls from there so you can work on drops. It's like that is not really the same as doing it off of someone's return of serve. So I do like, if I really want to work on my third shot drop, I don't want the person at the kitchen, because it's an easier shot when they volley it from the kitchen than. So what I'll do is I'll hit just kind of an average serve so that they can hit a quality return. And then I want to hit, if I'm working on my third shot, whether it's a drive or a drop, I want them hitting the best return they can hit, because that's the challenging ball. And, it's like it usually has like more spin and just kind of more on it, because it was just hit harder because it was a return to serve. And the trajectory is different than if it came from a volley. So, and that's kind of what you're saying. It's like, don't just give me this easy feed. Give me kind of a variety of more realistic,
and move me around. I do not want to be static. I want to be off balance. One of my biggest axioms when it comes to drilling is keep score or create a game within a game. If you want to get better, you have to recreate some form of pressure, or you're just going to lose focus mindlessly dinking or mindlessly hitting thirds, right? So in the game that I described earlier, where it's two people up feeding me balls and I'm driving and dropping, well, guess what? I win a point when I successfully arrive. I lose a point when I don't. Let's play to 7. Let's play to 11. So I'm constantly trying to create some form of quantitative accounting in these drills.
Yeah, I mean, I think drilling, there are different types of drills, and so you're describing like gameplay scenarios where I'm trying to set this up so that I'm all in on this. It's like drilling also does include just kind of single shot repetition, like single shot with a basket. And it's like, oh, I'm just going to hit this. I'm just going to hit this flick, hit this flick, hit this flick, feed me a ball. And I'm just going to, do that for reps. But it's like, yes, like you're describing a different type of drill, which is kind of more fun version where it's like, no, we're playing out points.
I would say even with the reps though, like one of my favorite drills I give my students, and they always hate me for this, and they're always like, I'm never going to be able to do this. And they spend 20 minutes hating my guts, and then they do it. It's the 100 dink drill. So if you ever come to me and you tell me you don't like dinking, we're doing the 100 dink drill. You have to hit 100 dinks over the net. I don't care how high they are. You can patty cake them. And what'll happen is you'll miss at 20, you'll miss at 17, you'll miss at 40, you'll get close, you'll get to 70 and you'll miss. And then all of a sudden it's like 100 and it's easy. So even when it comes to something that's just repetition, like cross-court dinking, I'll throw in something like, hey, get to 50. Find your level. Maybe it's not 100. Maybe it's 25 to start. But set something that feels uncomfortable to you.
Yeah, in my experience, almost like anyone who's played a little bit can make 100 dinks. The only people I would pick people who had never played before on day one, and it's like their number, we're going to get to 25. So if you've played, more than 6 times, it's like, yes, that number is 100. You should be able, anyone should be able to make 100 dinks once you've put a few hours in on the court.
All right, I share with you? Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I don't always want to count, because one of the benefits of drilling with a basket is I need the freedom to miss.
Yes.
And the freedom to kind of flick this shot and just try, what does too hard look like? What is too soft? These two went in the net, that one hit the back fence. Let's find the spot that's in between. It's like, when I'm practicing serves, it's like I want to make sure I'm missing deep and I'm missing into the net, so that I'm really kind of dialing myself into what is perfect and what's the perfect height over the net I need to be going for. And it's like, you have to have some freedom to miss while you're practicing. And if I'm keeping score, then I don't want to miss. So there's one's not better than the other. It's like, I just feel like both are good to balance and to blend.
It is a both and. I totally agree. And as soon as I've, missed 100 of the backhand flick and I'm feeling good about it, then I want to go ahead and start to translate that into a game. It's a total both and. So can I share with you one of my favorite 2-person drills?
Yeah.
All right. So this was born out of absolute necessity. I train with one of my favorite human beings in the world. His name is Kyron Burl. Shout out to Kyron in Palm Desert. And we do a lot of one-on-one drilling. And that's, as we discussed, not always the most realistic or helpful. So we invented a drill together where we're dinking cross court, and the only way you can win a point is grabbing the ball in the air and flicking it down the line where there's nobody, and you've won the point. And we came up with this drill to work on our volley attacks, in the air attacks. And what do you think naturally started to happen instead?
I would think the dinks would just get so boring and short that they would be unreachable.
All of a sudden, our dinking improved. And to this day, I warm up like this for a tournament where I pretend I'm doing this drill, and I cannot let the person across court to me catch the ball in the air. And it is like my growth hack to when my dinking is off. I go back to pretending I'm playing this drill with my partner, Kyron, and all of a sudden my dinks slow, my pace slows down. I'm able to feel the ball on my paddle longer, and I just go back to that drill. And so it's interesting when you start to allow your creativity and your imagination to take hold, and you're creating a drill for attacks, how we were able to create this drill that improved both of our dinking. And it still does help with attacks, and it still to this day is one of my favorite drills to do on definitely a weekly basis.
Yeah, so that kind of reminds me of so often when I'm teaching a clinic, and then we send the people out, and it's like, okay, it's like one of the first drills you commonly do in a clinic is you dink cross court. And so I go and I'm walking around watching these people dink cross court, and these rallies just aren't very long. It's like by 6 or 8 dinks, it's just a big chaotic mess. And I have to slow people down and tell them, hey, let's start cooperatively. Let's keep this ball short, and let's get some rhythm going, because what people I think their instinct, either they're not thinking at all and they're just hitting, which isn't great practice, or they are trying to be aggressive, right? Most people are trying to always what's the most I can do with this ball, and they dink with the most aggressive, shot that they can muster. And that does not lead to good dinking rallies. It doesn't lead to great dinking practice. And so I really have to get people to back multiple steps up. It's like, hey, let's start quite a bit slower than this. And then once they do that, then they start getting a little more control of the ball. Yeah. And it changes their mentality a little when I, kind of ask them to back off and then remind them that it's like, these are dinks. Let's pretend the point of this is to hit a soft ball that doesn't bounce so it's hard to attack. Because I think a lot of times people, they really do want to hit the most aggressive shot with every shot they hit.
You don't need to talk about me. I'm right here. Scott, please.
No, in drilling, you do this beautifully. But I mean, in a podcast about drilling, I think it's important to talk about like how if you just say, "Oh, I'm going to go drill dinking cross court," it's like, okay, well, you can do that. You can do that in an optimal way, or you can kind of do that in a chaotic way. And it's like, I like the idea of let's start really soft.
Yes. Don't
miss, get some rhythm, and then build up from there. Because you're starting from if you just go safe and go soft, okay, you're not missing, you're keeping the ball in play, which is what you want to do in the beginning of a match. And then as you get some feel, then you can start, doing a little more aggressive things. But it's like, don't just start with aggressive and then aggressive and then aggressive and then just have it turn into a mess.
Yeah, we talked about in our last podcast, things we've never said to a student. Gosh, you're just getting a little too low, right? Or you're just staying in your shot too well. Or, gosh, you're just too early on those counters every single time. Those are things we really don't usually, never say. We never say to a student. And so what I would add to that is, yeah, you're just holding the ball a little too long on your paddle, right? Like, it's a great way to warm up, feeling the ball on your paddle.
Yeah, can you not hit those dinks so softly?
Yeah. Let's firm those up a little. Swing a little faster. All right, what other drills you got for me? I've got a good serve and return one when you're ready for it.
So the other way I was thinking about like this drills is like there's a few different drilling scenarios. You could be like alone, like with a wall to hit against. Mm-hmm. You could be alone with like on a court with a basket. And it's like, well, what can I do in those situations? Yeah. Right. And I feel like it's a great point. The wall is good if you're by yourself with the wall. It's like you can kind of work on hands combos, right? You can speed up and then get the combo. I think that's a pretty common one, and it's like that's if you've ever watched Christian Alshon in his videos with his wall work, it's like I
wonder if he actually spends that much time practicing on a wall.
Christian, I think it's pretty well known that he does.
He does. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was just for the video. So yeah, that's amazing.
I know. I think he does, and it's like his hand speed is really good. Like you could also, if you have taped to the line, you could work on hitting drives the right height and stuff. Like because with a wall, you're just focused on hitting it at the right height. You don't have the whole court to distract you, and then you could probably, to me, that if I was working with the wall, what I'd be working on is my technique small enough? Is my swing the right size? Because I think once we get a partner and a court, everything gets bigger and loopier. But with a wall, it comes back so quickly, it's like everything would get shorter and more compact, which I think is good for pickleball. So I kind of like that idea. And then if I'm like by myself with a basket on a court, it's like serves are an obvious thing to practice, but also dropping the ball with ground strokes, both forehand and backhand. I think, and that's with just one other person too. It's like just a hand fed ball for ground strokes. And again, it's for practicing the length of the swing and the footwork. If you have someone to feed it to you, it really helps you work on the footwork every time. So you're hitting a strike. But I think those things would be kind of the highlights of if you're by yourself with a basket, that's what I would do. I saw another drill recently of someone by themselves with a basket standing on the baseline. They would drop the ball and then work on just lifting their third shot drop over the basket as they hit it with some topspin.
Interesting.
And it's like, oh, that's a great like by yourself drill to work on getting the feel of lifting your drop.
You've said two things that really are resonating with me right now. You said that if you're alone and you have a wall, you get to focus on the height of the net and being able to hit the ball as close to that net as possible. And something in my game is if my thirds are off or my drives are off, what do you think? Are they high or low?
I mean, if they're low, the point's over. It's like if they're high, I hope it's the high miss because the low miss is terrible.
It's high. When my thirds are off and my drives are off, it's high. And I think I would so benefit from going out to a wall where there's no pressure, right? Like I'm not going to have that negative, awful sinking feeling of hitting 10 balls in the net. Like all my training, my whole life in tennis is like net is evil, get one more ball over the net. And I think that has served me so well. But now at like the pro level with 6'4" guys reaching in to hit their fourths, like I got to keep the ball lower. And I actually really want to go out and use the wall to see if I can start training my third drives and my drops a little lower. So I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll report back to everyone and let them know how that's going. And then you talked about feeding the ball. Feeding the ball well is so important, you guys. That might sound like overly simplified. Like, what are you guys talking about? And I first learned the importance of this playing with CJ Klinger at the APP Chicago. I'd be at the net and he'd be about to feed me a ball and he would kind of throw the ball into the ground, wait for it to rise and start to descend, and then hit a perfect third shot drop. And that's how he fed the ball to me. Whereas what's everyone else doing, right? They're hitting like a volley to you. And I was like, I've never seen someone take so much time and consideration into how they're hitting a feed. And I started doing that. And it's like you said, it's something you can practice alone. And we learn from tennis how important hand feeding is. So thank you for bringing those two up.
No, I mean, I like his way of feeding because he's getting practice right off the bat. Whereas if I feed you a ball like out of the hand, like a coach, it's like, that's not even a rep for me. Right? Like that's a rep. That's a rep of handing you the ball. But if I drop it and I hit my shot, it's like I just got a rep and you're getting a rep. And so now every single ball counts. So that's a great way.
100%. All right. I've got a good self-invented serve and return drill. Do you want to hear it?
Let's go.
All right, let's go. Invented in Mexico. So take some masking tape, any type of tape you have, that blue painter's tape, and go, you can be as aggressive or conservative as you want. Go ahead and run that tape about 5 feet inside of the baseline. Run it parallel to the kitchen line, 5 feet inside the baseline, and do that on both sides of the court. So it's you and one other person. You're across from each other at the baseline, and you get a point if you serve it between the tape and the baseline. But the returner gets a point if they return it between the tape and the baseline. And you guys play to 11. Does that make sense?
So it's just a serve and a return. Like after the return, the score can be 0-0. It can be 1 for the server, 0 to the returner, or it can be 1-1.
Exactly.
So it's like every time both people have a chance to score. That's a good drill.
And then you can do it like you're...
I would assume the server has the advantage.
For sure.
And should win.
For sure. So you could do it 7. You can do it 7 and 11. Like the server has to win 11 points to win the game. The returner has to win 7 points. That's how I ran it in Mexico. And then you switch and the returner becomes the server for the next 11 or 7-point game. And I have implemented this personally. And I didn't need it so much on my serves. It's really helped me on my returns. And then as you get better and better, Scott, you can take that painter's tape and maybe it started at 5 feet inside the baseline. Now it's 4. Now it's 3. You know, can you get it to 2? Like it's a fun exercise.
Yeah. I would also like take that same, right? To me, that would be a great warm-up drill.
Yeah.
And then I want now I want to play a continuation off that where it's like, okay, that was a 2-shot drill. Now let's make this a 4-shot drill where the server, but focused on the returner. So the server serves, the returner has to make their return in that 5-foot area. The returner or the server now hits a drive at them, and the volley has to also land in that 5-foot area.
I love that.
And so really it's just it's for the returner. They either get both shots in there and they get the point, or if they miss one, they do not.
I absolutely love that.
Because it's like, okay, yes, you need consistent quality deep returns, right? Those are table stakes. That separates levels. But then also you just see so many sloppy fourth shot volleys. It's like, oh, well, it's just anything will do. They just, people just get it back over. And I feel like I've gotten a lot better at hitting quality fourths, not because of doing that drill, but because when I have to warm up Jessie before her matches, it's important. I make it important to me that I give her an excellent feed on every single ball.
Yeah.
And she likes to hit a million thirds and drops and drives, and I worked so hard on making sure I can volley that thing, stick that volley solidly back to her, because I need to give her a pro level ball. I can't be giving her shanks, and that's just not relevant to what she's about to do. I have to hit a very high quality shot back to her, and it's like it's made my focus through the shot on my volleys so much better. Just because my intention is to hit a quality ball back to I'm trying to be like ultra cooperative.
And I think that's such a great word, intention. If you're listening at home and you want one way to improve your drill sessions, it's intention. I call that keeping score, but just having any form of intention is helpful, so helpful to recreate real experiences. Love that word. I have another homegrown drill, which I thought was like totally unique. And, I was so brilliant. I came up with this drill. And then I saw Megan Fudge and Ryler DeHart doing it when they were on one of their Vietnam trips. They call it Volcano, and I call it tic-tac left toe. So are we all guilty, right, of getting to the kitchen line and being like, what now? Like, people play pickleball for years. They take lessons, and it's like this scary admission that you get to the line and you don't have like a dinking pattern and a dinking strategy. So something that I've done, and like I said, other pros have done, is they take 3 targets on each side of the court at the kitchen lines. You put 1 on each sideline, so that's 2 targets. And then you take the third and you put it where the right side player's left toe would be, and maybe just set it back a little bit. And I'll insert a video and some photos here to make it clear. And then you replicate that with 3 targets on the other side. You get 4 players on the court, and all of a sudden you just have 3 spots you're dinking to. And you have to hit one of those 3 spots. And the first thing you'll see when students do this drill is like aimless dinks, intentionless dinks. Like, was that to one of the spots? Miss it wide. Like, really miss it. Like, try and hit these targets. And of course, this is assuming people don't ernie. And then if they ernie, just bring those sideline targets in 1.5 feet, 2 feet. Have you seen this drill, or does it make sense?
The day I worked with you and your sister, you were making her do this.
Yeah.
And she wasn't being accurate enough at first. And then, you said some less than nice thing. And then she started doing it and then she was just like hitting target after target after target. So apparently your sister dinks better when she's angry.
Yeah, that's the lesson there. Yes. Oh my gosh. She did tell me that was a really big epiphany moment for her, and that she was getting to the line prior to that drill and had just so many thoughts. So I think this is like a calming, simplifying drill for people, this notion that I've got 3 targets. And then what'll naturally start happening, Scott, when you see students do this drill is, say they're on the right and they catch a forehand volley in the air, all of a sudden they're taking that volley all the way cross court and they're learning that like ankle breaker shot because in their head they just have their 3 targets and they're not even thinking about technique. They're just like, I've got to go to my 3 targets.
Yeah, I mean, like as you were describing it too, I was picturing it and I'm thinking like I would want maybe 3 small hula hoops in those 3 spots and then just have it, it's like the game is that those are in. If it's not inside those hula hoops, you lose the point. That ball is out. And it's like, can you, if you put targets there, it's like, yes, it needs to be near the target. But it's like, if you've got like a hula hoop or a box or something, it's like, it has to be in that box. That is what accuracy looks like. You find it is very hard to hit a target that small. It's like, yes, I could aim in that general direction, but when it has to go in, it ups your focus and it ups your accuracy. Like what it takes for you to be accurate will automatically increase because you have no choice.
Totally. And the reason Ryler and Megan call that drill volcano is they have a cone that they put on the right side player's left foot, and they have a ball that sits and balances on top of the cone, and the first team to hit the cone and get the ball to drop, volcano wins the game. That's how valuable hitting the left foot of the right side player is. It is that valuable.
No, it's sort of like you are programming some code. You're programming some dinking code. So it's like, this is just going to be, these are my default spots. And it's like, even if I don't adjust to whoever my opponent is at all, these default spots kind of work for most people. It's a great place to start rather than getting up to the kitchen and then reinventing the wheel every single time.
Right.
No, just go to your, it's like, I don't actually think of those spots. Like that's not my default pattern is I'm just going to cut this thing cross court low and make you lift up. And I want to make it hard for the person to change the direction and go down the line because I want the ball coming back to me. And so now I take over control of this point. So it's like I have a different like kind of default first dink is just going over there and like that's my way of just grabbing control of the point.
Yep. Love that. I only have one more drill on my list. What you got for us, Scott? I'm holding some back. That's for people to come to the pickleball breakdown clinics in Mexico.
Yeah, and like to be fair, like when I kind of was preparing for this podcast, it's like I wasn't just making lists of drills. It's like I kind of wanted to think a little bit about, like for instance, how much should I drill versus play?
Okay.
Right, and it's like, okay, well, I want to. There's I think Ben and Colin are pretty well known for they rarely play rec games. So almost all of their play is all they do is drill.
I rarely play rec games. I drill.
And it's like, and that has worked for them for, a very long time. It makes Colin is such a skilled player. He is so good at playing the role that they defined that would be best for them to play. And they've won more tournaments than anyone, but pickleball evolution happened. And so now they're breaking up. It's like, well, what happened? Why didn't they evolve? And it's like, I'm speculating that if all you're doing is drilling, your skills are being extremely strong and they are the 2 smartest, players. So why isn't it working? And it's like, I think the lack of randomness, lack of randomness in rec play that you get, it's like it makes them not as adaptable. So their strength index very high, their smart index very high, their adaptability index I think low. Wasn't changing with what's going on wasn't high enough, and I think that's kind of that's the reason that I wouldn't say, oh, just do what they do, nothing but drilling, that's the answer. It's like, no, there needs to be a balance. Now,
okay, so what do you think that balance is? Because I rarely play rec.
To me, I think it depends on who you are and what you're doing. If you're trying to be, if you want to be a pro or you are a pro, I think it is, it's like maybe 2/3 of your time should be drilling and working on shots, and maybe 1/3 kind of rec play and whatnot. But if you're just an average, it's like if you're a normal player that goes out to open play and plays in your group, and you're playing pickleball to have fun, then play and have fun. It's like you don't need to drill all this time. It's like if you want to work, I think for the average player, a couple of hours a week of drilling would be great, because then you're doing maintenance to your game and maybe adding a shot here and there. I think the way, the normal pickleball players once you've been playing for a while, you just kind of get better incrementally.
Yeah.
And so if you use your drill time and then you get very, you make a plan and you say, today I want to drill my return to serve. I want my return to serve to get better today. And you get that increment and you level up your return to serve. You're now going to be a better player. And then, the week after that, you go out with your friend to practice. You're like, hey, I want to work on my resets. Let's just drill that. I want to make my reset better. And it's like, if you have, plan your practice, you can get better that way. So it's like, I kind of thought about some of those things when we had this topic of drilling.
No, I love that you came prepared to talk about like the philosophical side, and then I had a totally different interpretation and understanding of the podcast and came with specific drills, and we've somehow birthed what I think is a pretty cool podcast episode.
Yeah, no, I think that's why it's good that we don't, like, you and I both, we start at the same point and don't tell each other where we're going.
Exactly.
And then we blow it out going there, and then you just put those two things together. It's seamless.
It's seamless. Yeah, I hope everyone likes the journey at home as much as we enjoy it.
The other thing that I was thinking about when we talked, like, what drills do, I'm going through an injury right now where it's like I can't play for another few weeks. Mm-hmm. What drills do I want to do when I come back? And it's like I start thinking about my game. And it's like, I don't want to tell everyone what the weaknesses in my game are, but one of the things I would like to be better is I would like a better fourth shot, especially kind of off the bounce. And so the drill that I am going to ask whoever is going to be drilling with me is, I'm going to be at the kitchen. They're going to be at the baseline. I want them to hit a high drop and then kind of come about halfway in behind it. And then I'm going to hit my fourth, and I'm going to hit it hard so that they can, usually when you hit a fourth hard, your opponent is coming in, they can take it out of there, they attack, right? That's where people kind of have that third, fifth combo point scoring idea. So I'm going to hit my fourth hard at them, and then I want them to attack me so that I'm really ready for that combo. So it's a fourth, sixth combo. That's going to be my drill.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens a lot is people hit that fourth hard because that's what they need to do, and they don't get ready for the incoming attack.
Yeah.
Because when people see you load up, and it's like, well, if they hit it to me, I'm going to attack this ball.
So how much? I love that you brought up the concept of like being injured, right? Because I think that we can always practice some form of pickleball despite injury. So like you're resting your arm right now. How much practice or drilling are you doing? Because you didn't hurt your 2 feet, Scott. Get on the court and like do some movement drills.
I literally did my kind of leg plyo workout today.
Yeah.
Like for the last few weeks, it's just been like I try to just make sure I get 10 to 15,000 steps on my treadmill.
Yeah.
And that's just my baseline. That's just so that I can, eat popcorn while I watch TV. That's just really just for the diet. But yes, I cannot play pickleball. I can't do much with this arm. It's like I'm doing my physical therapy exercises, but my legs are fine. And so, and I can work my core as well. So I am working on those things while I am not playing pickleball, so that it's like, okay, I'm not just completely starting from zero when I get back on the court.
So I did some prolotherapy in December after nationals on my thumb joint. And while that was kind of marinating, I would go to the courts and Kristen would feed me balls. I'd kitchen line, she'd be at the kitchen, and she would just move me side to side. I mean, it was exhausting, very, very exhausting. And I would catch the ball. And that's actually a great drill because we talk so much about, our paddle can be like a crutch. We can reach too much with it. And actually not having the paddle can improve your footwork. So we would go out and do that. So yeah, I encourage everyone at home, like, to think about drills you can do even when injured. And another one, as esoteric as this may sound, is playing in your head, playing in your mind. The mind is such a powerful thing. They've done so many studies that the mind really has trouble differentiating. There's almost no perceived difference to the mind from an imagined experience and a real experience. Really let that sit in. The mind processes them, those two different experiences very, very similarly. So you can play in your mind. I actually first learned this from a professional golfer who had a very rare form of cancer when she was 20, and she was hospitalized for a year. So she had to take a year off of collegiate golf. And she said there was not a day that went by that she didn't play 36 holes. And I never forgot that. And she said that when she recovered from her chemo and her cancer, and she had the golf club in her hand for the first time, that she felt really comfortable because she had been playing every day, twice a day for a year. And I'll practice this style of visualization with a shot I'm struggling with, or like if I'm working on a one-handed backhand flick, I'll replay the way the good ones felt in my mind. I'll replay that like before I'm going to bed at night, before a tournament. I'm like always playing pickleball in my head, if that makes any sense, Scott.
I do something similar when I get to a tournament and I'm walking around the grounds, but I will get all the way to the end, and so I will find the medal stand, and I will stand on it, and I will mentally collect my medal, and like 69 times that has worked for me.
I love that. I love that so darn much. I'm going to feed you some balls and run you around.
I do like the idea of having to catch it rather than use the paddle, because you have to be so much more accurate and quicker. Like you have to be more precise to catch a ball than to hit it with a paddle. So that the speed, I think that would ramp up speed big time, having to catch the ball. And so that level of movement and acceleration, like both acceleration and accurate braking, laterally in pickleball, is it's what separates. It's like some of the great athletes that we see out there playing. That is, you can definitely tell the advantage that athleticism is when you're watching the pros play. Even actually when you're watching amateurs play, there's some amateurs that it's like they aren't very good at hitting shots, but my gosh, their athleticism just makes them a beast to play against.
If I have a student who's struggling with their dinking, the first thing I do is take their paddle away. Just toss them the ball, watch them move, see if they can get the ball inside of their knee. Then I give them the paddle back and I say, move exactly how you were moving when you didn't have the paddle, and it's amazing how much that can fix.
Yeah, one tip I have for like the people who are very quick and athletic, but they kind of rush through things and they don't finish shots, or I find that they're too reliant on their athleticism.
Yeah.
I will bring a couple sets of ankle weights and slow them down.
That's amazing.
And it's like, you don't get to use your superior athleticism. You need to hit these shots, and you don't get to be late, and you don't get to jump the corner. You have to be like the rest of us, and gravity is going to work on you, and that will force you to hit shots that you otherwise kind of get away with not hitting, or not having to deal with.
That's amazing. People who want to learn how to ernie, best thing you can do is no paddle, no ball, or like literally just go replicate the movement. Try and feel it. Try and jump.
Plyometrics.
Yeah. Try and jump the corner. Try to not jump the corner and run around it, and do that a bunch of times. One thing I want to mention before we sign off, Scott, is something Mary Brasha taught me when I was doing quite a bit of one-on-one skinny singles. I was doing it side out scoring, which is brutal because it takes forever and you can get stuck at, do side for like 20 minutes. So she taught me how to do it rally scoring. It is so much more fun. You get to explore and practice the different sides and different configurations. And you go to 21 and you freeze on your serve at 20. So you have to win on your serve. You're frozen at 20. So it makes it really, really fun, super dynamic, moves quickly. You switch sides at 11. And so for anyone at home who wants to learn how to do this, it's super simple. At first, it can feel a little tricky. So you always serve cross court. So if the score is 1-0 me and I'm on serve, my opponent will stand on the right side or the do side because she has 0. I will naturally then serve across from her because we're always going to serve across. But because I have 1, I will slide to my left and my opponent will return down the line. Does that make sense, Scott? Is that how you play it?
Yeah, it's stacked skinny.
It's stacked skinny. Yeah. And
I
like
like that.
once you play skinny singles that way, you're like, what was I ever doing? Like playing it side out scoring.
Yeah, no, that's that it is a fun wrinkle to make. And it's like if you can make playing skinny singles and one-on-one pickleball more fun, why wouldn't you do that?
Exactly. And then I try and implement a couple rules in that, like no bounce speed ups through the middle. Like if it's my partner's ball, like you shouldn't get away with that. And you can return middle, like you shouldn't punish someone because they returned 1 foot off the middle. So, you want it to be cooperative. Scott's like, no, I'm calling that ball out.
No, it's like, I understand what you're saying. Like in the cross court skinny singles games, there's always, if you can flick it and hit the tee in the middle, it's like, well, that would have been your partner's ball. However, I'm kind of arguing, it's like, well, this is singles. This isn't like modified doubles. This is singles, so you should stand there and cover it. I
allow the middle flick if it's in the air. If it's on the bounce and you want to hook it, like, come on. That's my only rule. That's my only rule. No off the bounce hooking around landing on the tee. But if you can pick it up in the air and punish me for leaving my volley a little high, I'm okay with it.
No, that sounds like a fun game. I'm going to try it as soon as I am back able to play.
And if the cross court serve and then the slide is too confusing, then just simplify it by saying my opponent always stands even or odd depending on how many points they have. And then I do the same. Depending on how many points I have, I stand even or odd. And you can just do it that way, but then you're like serving down the line. And so I just always do the cross court and the slide.
Yeah, I honestly don't mind serving down the line because to me it's like, all right, that's the same. I just equate it to, because I'm lefty and I always stack when I'm on the left. And if I want to serve down the tee, that is almost a down the line serve. So it's like, hey, I'm working on my standing in the center, down the middle serve. So it's like there's no really not much diagonal advantage, and let's just do that.
Okay, that's super interesting. I never considered that. Any other wisdom bombs, Scott, you want to drop on me and us before we wish everyone a merry, happy everything?
Yeah, I think we'll just go with happy holidays and thank you for listening to this. I did get a really nice compliment from someone. J-Knack, who records for Bad Pickleball, said, I listen to your podcast while I'm driving to work because I can become a better pickleball player just by listening to you guys while I'm driving.
Aww,
and I'm like, that's really a nice compliment. It's like I can get better at pickleball while I'm driving if I'm listening. So shout out to J-Knack.
Shout out to J-Knack and shout out to everyone who's dropped YouTube comments and emailed us. Speaking of, going into next year, if you guys want topics covered, shoot us an email or drop it in the YouTube comments. I read thispblife@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. You guys, thanks so much for making this a great year. Happy, merry, everything. My cat has been asleep. I sent you a text message photo.
Yes.
Has been in that position for the past hour.
Whenever you leave the house, they assume you are going out hunting, right? The cat sees you as just a bigger cat. That's a little weird. So when you leave the house, if when you come back, you give them a little treat, they will think you are a great hunter. When you come back and you don't give them a treat, they're like, come up empty, huh?